Alpha Phi Alpha Sphinx Talk with Brother Eric Christopher Webb is sponsored by Good Health Wins. For more content, subscribe now.
Welcome to Sphinx Talk. I'm your host, Brother Eric Christopher Webb. And for this edition of Sphinx Talk, I have a brother Errol Cockfield, who leads crisis management and issues for one of the major global PR firms out there, Weber Shandwick. Welcome, brother Cockfield.
Brother Webb, great to be with you, and thanks for all the work you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it. So, I wanted to bring this good brother on because he was part of a panel at the 92nd Eastern Regional Convention about telling Alpha's story. And this brother deals with telling stories and putting together narratives for companies and dealing with different issues and different crises that the companies may face and challenges and whatnot. So I wanted to bring this brother on to talk about Alpha's brand, to talk about the challenges that all Black Greek letter organizations are facing as far as with their own brands and really showcasing our impact to our community. Because there's always a question about whether Black Greek letter organizations are relevant. And we know us writers and sorors out there, we know we're relevant, we know what we do. But do we do a good job of telling our story? So I'm gonna let the floor be open and talk to this good brother right here. So Brother Cockfield, what is your assessment of Alpha's brand and how we showcase what we do and whether the public really understands our brand and that of other Black Greek letter organizations out there?
Yeah, I think that these organizations, Alpha and the D9 in general, are facing challenges in terms of how we resonate with the public more broadly, right? I think 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was a lot less clutter in the environment. And now it's a very noisy environment with media and a lot of different influences. And I think we do need to reestablish the narrative and use different tools to get our message out and really underscore our relevance. So I'll say one thing. One is we need to connect more with folks using cutting edge tools, right, that at our disposal, social media among them, right? Second, we need to, I think, connect more with the global and local challenges happening to people of color and oppressed peoples. And we need to connect more with our legacy kind of DNA of service and activism. You know, we've got a world that's dealing with a very divisive climate. We've got a world where we've got big elections coming up, not just in New York, but globally. Half the people in the world are going to vote this year, right? We've also got metrics that show people of color and Black people sliding on sort of key asset metrics, right? Like home ownership, education, right? We've got a lot of glimmers of success, but we've also got some systemic problems we're dealing with. And I think when we ask ourselves about our relevance and our brands, it has to connect back to whether or not we're having an influence over those macro situations and trends.
So what is Alpha's brand, and are we doing a good job?
Look, I think, you know, when we sit with each other in our quiet moments, we're having reflective conversations, and the answer to that is not easy, but I think there are some doubts about our relevance. There are also metrics about our numbers. There are metrics around engagement. We have to be honest that our numbers aren't as strong as they once were.
Right.
Our engagement isn't as strong as it once was. we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Now I think Alpha
And that was
has
my question. Why?
yeah,
why
yeah,
is-
you know, Alpha has an absolutely great legacy of service, community commitment, community engagement. But I think we need to return to the legacy DNA of activism, right? Alpha got some of its best attention in the last decade when we said we're not going to do our convention in Florida because of the kind of rhetoric coming out of that state. Why did we get that level of top tier media attention? Because it connected to a sense that, okay, Alpha is fighting for us, right? And people connect to organizations that are fighting for them. And look, we're doing a lot of good work. We do work on voter registration, mentorship. They're brothers in communities doing amazing work. But I think in this moment, with the kind of divisive climate we're in, activism in particular is resonating with people in a bigger way, right? When you look at George Floyd's murder, these are issues that folks want us to be more on the forefront of.
Right.
Yeah. And there are ways that I think we can show up more boldly in addition to the core work that we're doing, right? There are, when you look at the civil rights movement, some of the most iconic images have like alphas with placards holding up A5A, March to Washington. We need to return to some of that street level organization to connect, I think, with the public at large, our own members, and potential new members.
Now, I think chapters are doing it. I
Yeah.
think though they're just not doing the job to document it. I think as the director of communications and editor of the Sphinx, I get chapter news and submissions and things of that nature. But it's hard for me to kind of communicate on and on and on about don't give me the picture. The chapter with the banner and everybody standing by and throwing up the five. Show me a picture of you actually doing the work. I mean, because those pictures could be for any service project, any community effort that everybody wants to be in the Sphinx. But I need the image of the work.
We talked about this yesterday, and this is something I do in my own work with companies. What you need to get your story out today more than ever are visual assets, video assets. Video is connecting more with folks than any other asset, right? So when a chapter is trying to get its message out, it's got to be recording things, not just taking still images, but recording. Like if you're in the community doing a mentorship program, you need to be actually recording what that looks like. So then you have a visceral reaction from the public in general in getting that out. It's really important to acknowledge like static stuff like words doesn't resonate as much as video, or even still images are actually not getting as much attention as video now.
Right.
We see TikTok and its explosive growth, and that's all video driven. So I think we have to become more fluent with the tools out there. And I think you're right that brothers are doing a lot, but I think we have to also challenge ourselves because there are opportunities that we're missing, right? Our footprint could be bolder in areas, and we're alphas. We have self-awareness, and I think we've got to have honest conversation about that as well. I think we have a lot of strength in the traditions we've established for 118 years. But sometimes we can get bogged down by tradition as well, right?
And that's a lot of legacy organizations as well.
And so we need to do training around video for our folks. How do you capture video? How do you edit it? How do you do storytelling around it well? So that we can equip folks with those tools. So then when they go out and they connect some of the core service work to a more activist set of things, they're ready to actually document that and capture that so that folks like you receive it and they can package it up properly in a way that resonates.
So right now with our organizations, when you deal with crisis.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that automatically make all organizations, all fraternities and sororities, a little nervous is when we
Yeah.
had hazing issues and incidents of that nature. And so, are we able to move beyond a negative incident to really, let not overshadow our work?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Our work.
Yeah. Look, I think there should be zero tolerance for hazing. I think hazing and its uglier sides have really, been a cloud over organizations like us for decades, and we've got to fully move past that, right? And it really connects to our reputation, because those black marks are things where there are people who just don't want to affiliate with our organizations in any way because of those black marks, right? And I think against that backdrop, we still have to do the work that we need to do and push forward, but we also have to recognize that those are real stains, right? But when we look at our reputation, I like to look at reputation as a goodwill basket.
Okay.
Right? You do good work, that fills up the basket. And those things that have stained you take a little bit out of the basket.
Right.
But you still got to be putting stuff
Right.
in the basket. And I think whether it's Alpha Phi Alpha or us individually, we all got our goodwill basket.
Right.
And we're trying to connect with folks in ways that fill up that basket. What you don't want is that basket gets so depleted, then your reputation becomes about the stains and the black marks. Right.
Now, when we talk about our brand and really driving home to the public who we are and our relevance as organizations, amongst the college brothers, and I'm not picking on the college brothers because we're both made on the college level.
Made at the college level.
Right. So I'm Spring '89, new chapter, Lincoln University.
Yeah.
And you cross where?
Yeah, Fall '91 Railroad chapter at Stony Brook University.
Right. So we're from the soil. So now when we look on our Instagram feeds or whatnot, and the college brothers are mostly showcasing strolling videos. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's out there. How do we get beyond that for the college brother and really kind of reaching out to the college chapters across the board to kind of really move to capture their work on campus?
Yeah, it's so interesting because decisions you make around social media can seem like a reflection of what your reputation is, right? But it may not capture the whole picture of the diversity of all the positive things you're doing. Certainly, socializing, which has always been a part of all of our brands, is important, right? It's how we build relationships, right? But also, we've got to make sure we get a diversity of stuff out there, just like companies do, right? And I think one of the ways we help younger brothers in their journey is we got to have older brothers who are involved with younger brothers, because the decision points that an 18, 19, 20-year-old is making, right? It may be more challenged in this general environment. Social media is very hard for young people to contend with. They can be, with respect, very trigger happy, right? Around things and not as circumspect. And I think this is an area where maturity comes in, and that's where the alumni advisor or the older brothers who come from that chapter have a role to play. So you can graduate and step away, but not step too far away that you don't have some hand in influencing those decisions. Because you're right, and I think this is something we're seeing with social media in general, is when you're telling your own story through all those posts, what does that pie say? Is that pie split up enough that folks have a full sense of who you are? It's really important.
And I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing with the college brothers in trying to educate them about certain imagery, and I'll bring up a very controversial image, and it is a part of us from a process standpoint, but it's not our symbol, and that is of the ape and the utilization vape. Our symbol for the general public out there, our symbol is the Sphinx. So regardless of which you may hear, think, or believe, it is not the gorilla. However, because the ape has some relationship to our old membership, our pledge process or whatnot, younger brothers now are gravitating back to this image, which was always inward facing. It was a kind of an inward facing thing. It wasn't a public thing. And the challenges with that. So, I'm always when I'm doing my panels and our workshops and our trainings, and I'm talking about the brand, and the younger brothers don't understand about the what's problematic about the usage of the ape in any way, shape, or form. Because what tends to happen is we're seeing, some brothers, some of the college brothers, and even some of the alumni brothers are embracing that ape imagery or whatnot. But then, let's say they're at a PWI, and what happens is we have these racist incidents with these other white fraternities and other racist whites on the campus, and they're hanging bananas on with a noose on your doorknob, and then you can't advocate as alpha men do. You can't advocate because this happened to an AKA sister at one school in I think it was DC or Virginia or whatnot, and you can't advocate, and they're making monkey sound, and you can't advocate, say this is racist and bigoted, but all over your social media you're posed as you're doing ape pose. So when they call you the monkey frat, right. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, look, I think we have to be really circumspect about this and think about the long tail of it. I think we've got to move away from that, to be blunt. We can look at a case study.
Right.
There's a case study on this. One of the case studies on this is, with respect, Omega SciFi.
Right. Okay.
Omega SciFi, which some of their brothers call themselves the Q Dogs, is not their official mascot.
Right. They want Omega.
And they're Omega gentlemen, right? And they like Jesse Jackson is an Omega gentleman, right? So that problem ran away from that organization to a point that, I happened to be in Charlotte at their enclave, just happened to be in town at the same time, and they're in shirts with it's everywhere. It's now hard to come back from that, right? So I think we've got to take a fairly tough stand on this at a national level, at a regional level, at a state, district, and area level, and basically we might have to actually put conditions in place around operations if folks do these things. We've done that before and we need to consider it, because for me, as someone who works in reputation, when your reputation runs away from you, it's very hard to get it back. So when you see the early stages of these kinds of things, you got to nip it in the bud.
So how does the public view us now? When I say us, I'm saying Alpha, and then I'm saying D9 organizations, because now you talked about advocacy and activism. Now the D9 organizations under the NPHC's Council of Presidents, our General President Lonzer is the chairman of the Council of Presidents, and I think now over the last few years or whatnot, they've done more to work together. Especially fraternities. In terms of advocacy on Capitol Hill, we do a D9 Frats Day on Capitol Hill or whatnot. And so we are out there working together, arm in arm or whatnot. So we're embracing that piece, right? So how do you think the public now, if Alpha is your client, and the D9 organizations are your client, what is your assessment of what do people see?
I think. Well, these are the kinds of things that perhaps we should have experts study. Mm-hmm. Like, what some of the work I do is around studying sentiment. There's actually polling and things you can do that can give you a very specific sense of what your brand is. And we should perhaps explore that exercise. It might be valuable to us. But I would say, anecdotally, based on conversations that I have and my interactions, they view us in two ways. One is they view us as kind of social organization that are part of the fabric of the Black community. Second, within that, they view us as service related in the context of that social fabric. But I think primarily when you talk to people, they view us first socially. They view us second service, not the reverse. I think we've got to balance that out more, right? So that when folks think about us, they think about us as integral to the service fabric of the community. And do we have that in certain zones and spots? Absolutely we have that. But do we have that broadly in the United States? I would say the answer is no. I think when I have conversations with people and I say I'm an alpha, they say, oh, y'all are the smart guys, right? But they don't necessarily speak about like the most recent thing we've done. Oh, you guys were out front on this, or I saw you out front on that. I saw a hit in the news about y'all doing X, Y, and Z. And that's where I think we have an opportunity, and I think there's been some slippage with respect. Are there brothers doing amazing work? Absolutely. Every day in communities, working tirelessly, right? But I think we have a gap to fill in today's environment, which is why I started at the top by talking about we're dealing with a world that is more complex and cluttered than ever before, where on metrics we are slipping, we are losing, right? And we've got to get more on the front foot.
Now you mentioned sentiment. Can you define that for the folks out there that don't do PR?
Yeah, like sentiment is essentially your reputation. How do specific audiences view you? So sentiment, like, so you might do a poll of 1,000 people, and there's methodology, research methodology around this, and that questions you ask those 1,000 people about how you're perceived would then give you a sense of how 100,000 people might view you. But you've got to have a sample pool that's large enough from a methodology standpoint for you to say, this is sentiment, this is your reputation. So sentiment is basically segments of your reputation. So if you call those 1,000 people, you might ask them a question like, is Alpha Phi Alpha known more for stepping or for service?
Right.
And then they would have an answer to that, and that would be part of your rubric in terms of how you would like arrive at what is the general sentiment about your organization's reputation.
And we're talking about reputation. Is Alpha's reputation what brought you to Alpha, your journey?
Yes, absolutely. You know, when I was, I remember walking on my hall, when I was 17 years old, I saw a flyer for an Alpha smoker, and I went and I learned about Alpha. But the guys there, they said, do your research, right? So I went to the famed Schomburg Library in Harlem, and I looked at the history books for Omega, Kappa, Sigma, Alpha. And what was distinct about Alpha for me were like 2 or 3 things. One, the leaders, civil rights leaders that had come, who were Alpha men, and just an impressive list. We all know the list. That impressed me. Second, though, I was impressed by the fact, when I looked at the early foundings of each organization, Alpha was distinct in that it came out of a study group. And the other, like Omega, for instance, stressed fellowship.
Right.
Alpha came out of this study group, and then there was a debate among the early members of the study group around whether or not they should even form a fraternity. Right. So the fact that they were so circumspect as an intellectual exercise, and me being someone who's like really grounded in critical thinking, I was moved by that. And I was like, it wasn't just, okay, they've got these amazing men who are members. Right. It's also the DNA of how they came about in that journey, and the fact that CC Poindexter broke off and he didn't know if, in his mind, whether or not Alpha had the historical, black people had this historical gravitas to found an organization. It was interesting just to read about his mindset against the mindset of these other men, and that they had the stick-to-itiveness to still go forward within that. So that I left there like, I'm going to be an alpha. I'm going to pursue this.
So you and I both kind of had almost a similar journey as far as going to research and how you went about research. Because I think I was on most black students, and I grew up in Pittsburgh. And so most black folks, if you knew about fraternities or whatnot, regardless of what your socioeconomic, you might have known about the Qs, because they were always out there socially, right? So I didn't know anything about, I just knew the Qs.
Right.
I didn't have an opinion on whether I wanted to be one. It was just, that was the only organization I knew, and all else I knew about fraternities was Animal House.
Right.
The movie that was out there.
Yeah, I remember
our age group, right? Just
yeah.
before school
Toga
day.
parties and
right,
all
just
that.
before school day. So I go away for a college tour to Lincoln and Cheney University, because I'm from Pennsylvania. And so I visited Lincoln University, and two of the tour guides that were guiding my high school, well, not high school, it was a group of students from all over the city of Pittsburgh that were one of these black colleges, were alphas. They literally just crossed. And so I keep asking them, so what they make you do? What they make you do? And, they're dancing. But the fact that, one, what struck me was they were there leading the tour. And they were encouraging us to come to the school. They were saying all these positive things about college and what we needed. And they came from the communities. And they actually were from Pittsburgh. The guys, two of my prophytes, one of them ended up being my ADP. When I pledged. And then, I took that back home, and I was a junior at the time. And one of the other guys that I went to high school with, his brother had gone to Lincoln and was an alpha brother. And when he found out that I went, he said, "Oh no, we decided that we were going to go." But when I got to Lincoln, these were the same guys that, because they were from Pittsburgh, they became like my big brothers. They would check me out, hey man, what are you doing? What's going on? Kind of give me the lay of the land, how to talk to the women up there, how to do this, how to move around, that sort of thing. And when it came time to join the organization or whatnot, I started asking questions. And the brother that was my purse, he's now deceased in Omega chapter. I'm wearing his, remember one of his rings right now. My purse, John Johnston. I approached him and said, "Hey, John, can I, tell me, can I borrow a history book and could you tell me about?" And the first thing he tells me is, "Check out the other organizations." So I go, because I'm a reader. I go to Langston Memorial Library, which is the Langston Hughes collection. Langston Hughes' books and so collection. So I spent hours and hours. I read the albums. He said, check out the other organizations. So, I literally went through, every time he said, go check out the Qs. And he sent me, every time I keep on going back, I literally read everybody's history book. I literally read, and I thought it was interesting. And when I had this conversation with people, I think I've learned to appreciate Alpha more by being able to appreciate and understand the history of these other organizations and seeing how they all faced the struggles and things they all faced to come together. But that brought me to Alpha, and that made me go, okay, I got to do the original. They thought they were trying to improve on something, but actually they might not have gotten it right. I still don't think they got it right.
I mean, that resonates with me in a big way. I mean, another thing I didn't get to mention that resonated. One was the eloquence of the brothers of my chapter, the older brothers in their presentation. Mm-hmm. These are still some impressive guys, and they were impressive at that time. So that got me to even go do the research, right? And then I think the fact that Alpha was founded at a predominantly white institution, and it captures the journey of Black people in these very, very tough situations. You think about what it was in 1906. This is pre-flight, right? Pre-commercial flight.
And there was a race riot in New York at that time, in 1906.
You think about what it's like for black men attending a prestigious institution like Cornell to be traveling on the train by themselves, right? With, in the sort of post-Civil War era, right? And what it must have been like to be a young man traveling to a university and then operating in a university climate, right? That was probably in some ways hospitable and in many ways inhospitable. And to when I read about that journey, that really connected with me. And then when you saw that Alpha, essentially, that story then came to Howard, and there were all these organizations that came out of that. Right. That's the root of the tree. Come on, So that was important. That was important to me.
So I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah. It's great to be here. But top line is we're doing amazing work. We have a strong foundation. We have a rich legacy. I think we can harness that legacy more in this sort of big moment that we're in. And we're all reflecting on this moment and reflecting on our own behaviors and like the things that we need to do to kind of get into this fight more, right? So it's an important time for us to come to some determinations about that.
Right.
It's great to be with you.
Show, not tell.
Yeah, exactly. We got to show, not tell.
Well, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah. Show and tell.
Show and tell. This has been another episode of Sphinx Talk. I'm Brother Eric Christopher Webb, 06.
Thank you for watching Sphinx TV. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe now for more content from the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. 06.